What do the Persians, the Greeks, the Egyptians and the Babylonians have to do with this island on Lough Lane? They're connected by one precious manuscript. The Annals of Innisfallen, written in Latin and Irish, are now found in the Bodleian Library at the University of Oxford. And in recent years, some locals here in Kerry have been calling for the manuscript to be brought back to its original home. But in fact, this island monastery of Innisfallen was almost certainly not the original home of the manuscript. Like most collections of Irish annals, it contains a mix of local and national and even global events. And the pattern of recording small-scale events has enabled scholars to figure out where a particular collection of annals is likely to have been written. If it includes a lot of little events in and around Clonmacnoise, for example, it's probable that it was written there. In the case of our manuscript, scholars who studied it carefully concluded that it was a monastic scholar at the monastery of Lismore in County Waterford who wrote the first section of the Annals sometime in the year 1092. He was relying on documents that had been written at the monastery of Emly in County Tipperary, and the monks of Emly were using still older Irish compilations. So Lismore in 1092 was the original home of the manuscript. But from that time on, the annals were added to year by year for the following 4 centuries and more by about 30 different scribes whose styles of writing vary widely. Based on the careful study of these editions, experts have concluded that the manuscript actually moved to a West Munster monastery around the year 1130, most probably here in Innisfallen, given how prominently this place features in entries from after that time. The final entry in the Annals from the year 1450 is a fairly grim account of the blinding and castration of a man held prisoner by the Earl of Desmond. There's a fair bit of violence in these annals, but it's interesting to note too that teachers and men of learning are often mentioned too, highlighting the scholarly culture that united Irish monasteries even through periods of political turbulence. What I find most fascinating though about the Annals of Innisfallen is the section dealing with ancient history. It's absolutely extraordinary. Drawing on early Christian writers who were themselves drawing on classical sources, the compilers of these annals, they attempt to synthesize everything they know about the chronologies of the ancient world, of Assyria, Egypt, Israel, Greece, Babylon, and Rome, and so on. So there are chronological entries on all kinds of distant events, arranged into ages of the world, from the 3rd age of the world to the 6th age of the world. We read there of the invention of Greek writing, the kidnapping of Helen of Troy, the first kings of Rome, the exodus of Israel from Egypt, David's defeat of Goliath, the founding of Carthage in North Africa, and the first Olympic Games. And woven into this universal history are events in the legendary history of Ireland. So alongside kings of faraway places, we find legendary Munster kings too, like Etherscale Mór and Conor Mór, as well as heroic figures like Cuchulainn. And in some cases, it's not just a matter of supplying basic information. We find extended poems in these annals, composed in the Irish language, and almost certainly aimed at helping students learn this universal history. There are little poems about Cyrus and Darius, the Persian kings, and the longer one about Artaxerxes II. There are 4 stanzas about Alexander the Great too, called Alexander Mac Philip in this poem. The extent of his empire is recounted, and it's slightly exaggerated. It says he ruled from India to Spain, which is not quite accurate. His death is mourned in that poem also as a loss for nobility, and the division of his empire is given in some detail. What these annals reveal about monasteries like Innisfallen and all the other monasteries who played a role in their composition is that they were not places of willful ignorance or unwarranted seclusion. At their best, learning was central to the life of these monasteries. Not just the learning of scripture, but the study of all of creation and all of history, as far as their libraries would permit. It's thanks to the holy curiosity of these monastic scholars that Irish intellectuals in that period came to understand the story of their own people in a global context. On little monastic islands like Innisfallen, the story of the island of Ireland took its place in the great story of the human race.